I'm Jesse Lubinsky.
I'm Donnie Piercy.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Heil, hosts of the Partial Credit Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network.
Just like the show you're listening to now.
Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others.
Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Psychologist? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real with you. This all sounds made up. I'm just kidding.
She's brilliant. Make a sandwich, or if you make a tank.
You know, one of the two things you do on a Saturday morning:
Yeah.
sandwich, tank making.
You know,
it's always a toss-up. Sometimes I do both.
It's literally just a stop sign in the course. Like, remember,
It's a billboard that's like,
Yep.
remember this awesome diner from 80 years ago.
by the
It's
time
5
you've read
miles
it, you're
down the
already
road.
5 miles
Yeah.
past it. Yeah. Welcome back, folks. It is Will. It is Josh. We are the hosts of the High Tech Podcast. Back for another week in the ring. You here with me?
Yep, I'm here. I am. We're doing the High Tech Podcast, right?
Now, the one thing that's really fun about doing a podcast is when, you just don't pay attention to your technology, and when the warm weather gets here,
Yeah.
motorcycles are everywhere. It's literally, as Josh and I started tonight, we hit record. Our usual thing is like we're so good at this, maybe at this point, that when we hit record, it's usually like a couple seconds later, one of us kicks off and it's going. Nope. Tonight we just stopped. He's staring at me like, what's the matter? I was like, just held my finger up. Hold on a second. Waited for the motorcycles and drag racers to go up my street, and now we've got our episode live. Episode 57. We are here.
Wow.
We're doing this, Josh.
Yeah, another
Can't
episode.
stop.
We
Won't
act like
stop.
this is like the first time we've done this, but
I don't know. I'm still surprised.
you're still surprised we're still here. You
Yeah.
know,
I don't know. Like,
doing stuff.
I just assume every time you start a podcast, it's going to fail. You're not going to keep up.
Yeah, no, it's we got it. Yeah, we're doing another episode.
Yeah.
Talking about some fun stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
As
some good times.
always, because we're here, because we want to keep talking about fun stuff, because we want you to have good fun stuff, please do follow us on Twitter at High Tech Podcast. Make sure to was that even words? High
That was a
Tech
word.
Podcast.
Podcast. It's it's a little bit of a tongue twister. That's why we came up with the name. We're like, we want to throw you off.
Let's
Like, how do I even say this?
make this as hard as possible for Will to get out.
Exactly.
Like us, connect, follow, reply with pictures, images, things, all the fun things. We are very excited, in my opinion. We have started getting some consistent pictures.
Oh
right?
yeah, listen, I asked for a snake with a hat on, and I didn't think that was going to happen, and I totally got a snake with a hat on. Somebody gave
Hats
me
off
one.
to you, Brian. Thank you, sir.
See what he did there? That was hilarious.
But
Nailed it.
and Manny, a friend from one of my professional groups, drew us the anteater, right? The anteater.
Oh yeah, we got an
taking a
anteater
selfie.
drawn. People, we were like, oh, people do listen to us. That's
It's
cool.
amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty insane.
So if you're listening and you followed us on Twitter or you've got email, because we all have that, make sure to connect with us at inbox@hightechpod.us and send us an image of...
Oh, I've got one for us this week. I pre-planned.
He's ready.
Okay, I've been thinking about this one, guys. I want a bearded dragon with a wizard's hat on.
Boom.
Okay,
Gandalf the Dragon.
nailed it. Okay, bearded dragon, wizard hat on. You can send that to inbox@hightechpod.us or on Twitter. People have been sending it on Twitter. It's totally fine to do that as well.
Yes.
Hit us up on Twitter and shoot that picture.
That
there
may be
or-
better because then you
to
get to
our
share
Twitter.
with the wonderful world.
Yeah, then people could see all the work you went through because we know you put in a ton of Photoshop effort to make this happen.
Once you've done that, once you've connected with us, once you starting the conversation with us and engaging, head to hightechpod.us. Make sure you check out the website, check out the resources we post with every episode. Sometimes, like our interviews, it's just our wonderful guest and some information about our guest and connecting you back to whatever they've got to talk about. But when it's an app or a regular conversation episode, there's information about the app and what the app does, how to get started, if it's free, any accessibility concerns. We're trying to vet these things for you so you can just start using them.
Yep.
Okay, Josh, I'll turn it over to you for this topic. Just take us, right?
Oh yeah.
You ready?
So when I was working at my institution, you could say I created something. You know, I created something called Create, and it stands for Collaborative Regulation Enhanced Analysis and thinking environment.
Wow,
And,
that's
yeah,
really
I know,
cool sounding,
it's
Josh.
pretty crazy. Yeah, I know. And I know the acronym because I made it. Oh, okay, we're laughing, folks, because I made nothing. Will did. Today we're talking about something that Will was involved in at his last institution that he was working at. Honestly, I'm gonna be real here. I don't know a lot about it, to be honest, other than what Will has kind of offhandedly told me and what the website says, which is why we're kind of why we're joking, because I'm not gonna be a lot of help today. But I'm gonna give my feels on it.
I think you're gonna care more than you know. So I will give. Sorry, I'm just gonna get up on stage and set the scene here. And as in my master's degree, I took a class from a Dr. Marcela Borge. She's a fantastic faculty of education at Penn State University. Dr. Borge does research on metacognition, but more specifically, socio-metacognition. I'll get to some terms and definitions in just a second, folks. But she's also just always working with like how we learn. She's a kind of a cognitive educationalist or an educational cognitivist or psychologist. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real with you. This all sounds made up now.
She's brilliant. She's brilliant. This Create thing that she did. It's a platform. It helps people engage with intentional discussion, right? She saw, as I see and many others see, that discussions online don't always hit the mark, and they are representative of some of the issues we experience with like face-to-face conversations. It's a great place in an online environment to test and practice discussion because you have a text feed. You can literally research the text, look back over it other times. Like if you ever do research on in-class discussion, you have to record it, and then you have to transcribe it, and then you have to edit the transcription, right? It gets very hard to do research on spoken language. There's some technology helping with that these days, but Create is a text-first research platform on discussion. So when I was a master's degree student, I'm taking her class. She has us use this platform, and what it does is it scaffolds the learning experience around a discussion. Altogether, it was something like a 3 or 4 hour experience, and we had to do these 3 or 4 hour experiences 2 or 3 times in the entire semester. So we'd have to get on and like do an hour of like 30 minutes or an hour of self-reflection, and we'd have to think about the discussion topic at hand. We had to do some research on it, make sure we had some citations ready. It was preparing us. And then when we actually did the discussion, we would get on a live instant messaging platform with our peers, 1 to 2 peers, usually small groups, and we'd have to have a conversation on the assigned topic using the research, using our citations, making sure to be equitable, considering like if I've talked too much, try to talk less. If I've talked too much, try and ask more questions, right? There was prompts that she was building into the system that would drive us to have better discourse. That's it. I mean, if we wanted to leave the episode there, we could just say that this episode is about driving learners to have better discourse. I want to highlight Create specifically in the Create project because of using it. I felt that it was really cool. I think the research that Dr. Borge has done is also really fascinating, and it speaks to many of the issues we have in not only equity, right, but thoughtfulness, research, scholarliness of discussions. Like there's so many elements that need to be better here, and this tool targets that like with a laser focus, right? Yeah. She could build the rubrics in there. It was very clear to us. We had to, what equity meant and what it meant to do social knowledge making, right? We had to make knowledge together. So she gave us a rubric and points on what it meant to try and like prompt each other for questions and then extend those answers and extend those questions. Lots of examples, lots of modeling going on in there. I mean, when I think about designing a tool and I think about the learning theories that need to go into doing that, I'm like really excited about the giddiness of the theories there, but what tools always, follow through with the scaffolding, the preparation, the modeling, the examples, the right? This tool, she built it from the ground up with a development team all through Penn State University. And this tool does that. Now, what I mentioned earlier, I'll come back to that terminology. If you're not familiar with metacognition is the practice of thinking about our thinking, becoming aware of our thinking processes. So if you make a sandwich, or if you make a tank, right? If you ever want to think about tanks 101.
One of the two things you do on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Sandwich, tank making. It's always a toss-up. Sometimes I do both when I got a lot of time.
It's
Peanut butter sandwich,
making a sandwich and then making a
tank.
tank while he's eating the sandwich.
Yeah.
But if you're making a sandwich, I love it. So many of us, right? Grab the bread, grab the spreads, grab the cheese, grab the meats, grab a little bit of veggies or something, and start tossing together, keep going. And we're done in a minute, and it's in our right hand, left hand. We take a bite of it, and we've taken for granted everything that happens in that process. Metacognition insinuates or encourages us to, when we get that out, like, pick your bread. Well, why did I pick the bread I picked? Do I want whole wheat because it's healthier? Do I like sourdough for the flavor? Did I go for generic white because it's the cheapest, right? Thinking about the process, like I reached for bread and I grabbed bread. Well, why did I grab the bread that I grabbed? And if you can think about the why of why you grab the bread, it can help you process, like, next time, maybe I don't want to grab the white bread that's not as healthy for me, and I want to grab the wheat bread or the multigrain bread because it's healthier for me. And thinking through those.
The multigrain bread.
Well, you're a big rye, right? You like your rye breads?
I like rye, wheat, and sourdough.
Okay. I'm not on the sour. If it's sourdough, I'm out. No sour for me.
Yeah.
If it's a mild sourdough, I'm okay.
Okay.
Now, ask me about my tank preferences. I don't know yet because I haven't done my metacognition.
We haven't thought about it, and we haven't finished Tanks 101. It's quite a long course. It takes almost an entire year.
But after the bread, like, you can replicate that with every step. Like, why do I pick the meat that I pick? Do I pick beef or do I pick chicken or do I pick turkey? Is one healthier? Is one not? All that stuff. That's metacognition. Mm-hmm. Socio-metacognition is the practice of trying to do that with people. Social, the people element. And so create drives you to do that while you're thinking about what you're doing in a discussion. Why did I use the citation I used? Why did I ask the question that I asked that way? Sorry, I'm all over the place. But once you've done the discussion that I mentioned was like about 90 minutes, there's intentional 30 to 60 minutes of debrief afterwards. So you by yourself reflect back on the prompt. And you can scroll through the discussion. She wants you to see what you're doing in the conversation and when it's happening. And at that point, you can kind of do this metacognition practice for yourself. But because you're looking at your peers, it is social, right? Some of this should be happening while you're discussing. Some of this is happening in post. But you're considering, like, when I asked that question, John replied effectively. Like, I asked a great question and John replied and he provided a source for his reply. Awesome. Check. We did good practices. Then if you asked what you felt was the banger question, like, this is your home run question later on in the episode, and no one replied, like, there's a moment for you to say, well, why did Parm and why did Allison not reply to this? I felt like it was a really good question. Why did I get ignored? Is there something I said earlier that pushed this question away, or they didn't think it was as valuable? This is reflection. We've done some episodes on that, right? Mm-hmm. Episode 53 or whatever. Reflection is really good. Yeah. But this is what Create is designed to do. Get you thinking about all these things, doing it with yourself, doing it with your colleagues. And once you've gone through it and found practices to reinforce, practices to get away from, you should be better at discourse in the digital space. But you could apply all these things to just conversation with other people. Okay. It's a lot of stage setting. I apologize. Yeah. There's a lot going on there, but I think that this is pretty darn valuable.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different way to discuss. It gets at some of the issues we brought up with discussion before. Our standard discussion, which is, here's a question. Give me 5,000 words on that question, and then respond to these 7 people. And please don't just say, good job, I like this idea.
And you should do all of that in 3 days, and then you have 3 more days to reply to everybody.
Yeah, you have 3 more days to reply to everybody, and then come Sunday, you're done. We don't care about this discussion anymore. And hey, there's a new one. There's a new one this week on a new topic and a new thing. Let's jump in. So yeah, I mean, I like the idea. I guess, so here's my question. You laid out some of this. So like, let's walk through this with just like a topic. So what was like one of the topics that you guys were working? Obviously, you had like kind of a starting thing you were researching. So like, let's just think about like the first time you went through this. What was one of the things that she led you through? Because your description was really good, in full, but I think like my questions are, I'm trying to think through just like the flow of how this all happened, right?
Sure.
And like what actually the reflection looked like at the end.
I ironically don't remember the exact topics. We had to like do stuff around the educational theories we were working with, so it would have probably been like dense with like cognitive apprenticeship or even just design theories, and I don't remember. But if I were to take an example topic, I don't know,
Okay.
like
Well, if only we had one of those.
tanks maybe, and
Maybe
and tank
tanks.
philosophy.
Tank philosophy. It's a deep topic that the whole world was wondering about.
In the entire sequence, right? Step 1, we would have all, in our course, we would have had some access to the different types of tanks. We would have had generic tank information available to us. So the prompt would have been like, what was the impact on World War II of the German Panzer tank, right? I don't know.
Okay.
And so that's the generic prompt, but it's like now when you do your reflection and prep step, you need to be pulling together resources that support your current understanding. So if I think
so
that
first, pause for a second. First step, reflection and prep. That's what I'm hearing.
Yep.
Okay. So
Yep.
I get my topic. I'm researching my topic, pulling together resources, trying
Citations,
to gather
read some more.
information about this thing that we're talking about. Okay.
And that so the prep stage has some reflection because you're trying to think back on what you already know and trying to gather resources, but it's also prep in the sense of like the prompt is there and the rubric. So you are supposed to take some time to familiarize yourself with the rubric. Like I said, that was equity, right? Conversational equity. Are you good at talking and giving other people questions?
Okay.
Do you have your citations and are they cited effectively, correctly? Do you, it was like 5 or 6 big criteria helping people drive on these things. Then, so if you've got your prep stage down, about 30 minutes, when you go into the actual discussion, it really looked like an AOL Instant Messenger chat forum from like years ago. I don't say that as a bad thing. Like it was really clean and it was just like John's name, timestamp what John said, and then the next line right below John and Will's name, timestamp what Will said.
So reflection and prep, you did your stuff, you pulled your stuff together, and then you're entering essentially a chat room.
Yep.
Okay, that's what we're talking about. And just to clarify, when we're referencing how I would define a chat room different than probably the traditional discussion that we're used to in an online course, chat room is like live chat. Like if I post something real quick, we're thinking like Slack. We're thinking...
Yep. One sentence,
any of
2
those-
sentences.
Yeah, Facebook Messenger. We're thinking of something, it's a couple sentences, it live posts, and the expectation is that somebody else is there getting it pretty quickly.
You get on, the activity was to get on in synchronous time with one another. You were supposed to be on for the same 90 minutes responding to each other in live time. And so some of the difficulty of that was, I do recall there being a couple prompts to address, so you'd have to be watching your time in those 90 minutes to be like addressing the one question, using resources, asking each other questions about it, and aware of the time enough to be like, all right, I think we're done with topic 1. Is everybody ready to move on to topic 2? And so people would say, I got one more question, or yeah, let's keep going. You move on to topic 2, and you're trying to balance that process in the 90-minute time frame.
So I have a question. I think what I'm trying to envision this, right? Because I'm looking at the site, but like, okay, so you come to topic 1. How do you avoid this? Because what was the goal? Was like each person would jump in and throw in what they found first, and then questions they had, and the goal was like answer it. Because I could hear, for instance, the thing that's running through my head right now is whenever I've tried to implement chat rooms, it can be difficult because like it turns into like a free for all, like
Chaos.
where it's hard to also track who answered what, like, and make sure everything was going like. That's like, I'm curious, how did you start the conversation?
Yeah, we had instruction enough to say that like when you went in and got started, address topic 1. There really wasn't, because we were like engaging with our groups and doing other stuff in the rest of the class, like there was already some established connection. We already knew each other's names at some level. So it's not like we joined it and it was like, all right, here's Will in from Pennsylvania this evening with like it was just like, all right, guys, we're all ready. Everybody ready? You got your stuff? Yeah, let's go. Topic 1. Somebody would have them, or we would just say it and then get going.
And then you would just like post what you found, and then if you had any questions, throw it in, and then people would kind of address that and post
and
what
it was
they found.
the questions themselves weren't necessarily like seek and find. Like, hey, I found this cool information about the Panzer tank. It was like, So my thoughts on the Panzer tank are that
Okay.
it was not as effective at winning the war. While somebody else went, well, I think it was pretty effective. Like, it's pretty clear. Like, once the timeline of the war, when the Panzer tanks came in, the war changed in X favor. And with the actual rubrics themselves, I think some of the value for being like having topic 1, 2, and 3 is at all times, all of us are considering, all of the rubric elements, right? So there's verbal equity, joint idea building, contributing alternative ideas, quality of claims, and the affect. I just kind of grabbed a snapshot of those, and I'm looking at them on screen here. If we had 3 questions, we're all aware from the get-go we've got to be answering those questions, but it's even on screen. Like, while we're talking, the left-hand side of the screen is our chat, the right-hand side of the screen is our rubric, and that rubric, again, includes verbal equity, who's talking when, joint idea building, like, have I asked questions, have I extended questions, have I suggested something to you you hadn't considered, contributing alternative ideas, being able to contradict each other or provide a different lens without being necessarily negative, quality of claims, again, citations, referring to our textbook, referring to scholars in the field, and affect, just generally being emotionally aware, providing space for each other. These feedback points, I think, are what made it so important while we were doing it. Like, if the question was, did the German tank have any impact? Well, I'm not only trying to answer that, but I'm seeing the rubric and trying to ask my peers what they think about it. It's not just seek and find answers. It's like, what are we understanding about the significance of the German Panzer tank in World War II?
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, now you finish, so you get through all your topics. And this is the part I think I was a little less clear on. What's the follow-up kind of reflection piece that we're talking about now?
So when you're done, you're keeping your time track. You actually all kind of click like, all right, chat's over. You end the chat. It gives you kind of a generic rating, like, okay, in general, you've got this much equity. So an instructor almost always has to come back over and review it because it's text based, right? There's so much happening.
Yeah.
In
is
this
the instructor
space.
watching this while it's going on?
Not live. No,
not live.
The instructor would come back and
so they
look at it
built a
later
custom
time.
tool that was tracking the chat system too. That was kind of like working.
It tracked the chat system. It ran some basic metrics on like word count, character count across all users, across all posts. It counts like who posts how many times.
Okay.
Some of that stuff was really cool that I got to see it on when I went and worked at Penn State after being a student there. We don't usually talk about that, but it's fine. I got to see the back end. I worked with Dr. Borge a little bit to like try and set some of my faculty up to use this tool.
Okay.
And it was a cool opportunity. It's really designed to drive better discussions, but you can swap in any prompt you want to. We could literally do this German Panzer tank thing, or we could say, what's the importance of the historical significance of Abraham Lincoln's assassination to the post-Civil War what do they call it? Not Reformation, but Reconstruction, right? Like, you could ask that question in this platform and have the students wrestle with it. And Dr. Borge was trying to research specific things, right? So the amount of time she was requiring, the fact she was requiring the synchronous experience, like all that was a part of her research. You could have it be a 30-minute conversation. And to the point of us kind of highlighting Create as a platform and my experience at Penn State, this isn't something you can necessarily run out and get tomorrow. There is a website now, thinkertools.org. We'll have that linked, that you can kind of get to some public information about this. Mm-hmm. But my thought for providing this to you as a consideration, to you, the podcast listener, is you can do some of this stuff without the tool.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the most important parts are just having synchronous conversation and a clear rubric. A rubric that's not just like, did you do 500 words, but is, did you provide verbal equity to your peers? Did you build ideas with your peers? Did you have quality claims? Like, that's a lot different, I think, rubric mindset than, did you post by Tuesday? Did you do 500 words? And did you include 2 citations?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, I would push that maybe language in the rubric needs to be tweaked a bit if we're not working with instructional designers as our students. But
sure.
so let's pose this. I have this question I've been waiting to pose. Okay, so here it goes.
Bring it.
How would we do this without a Penn State programmed app?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So like this was custom built, right? So some of the stuff you're talking about, like how it evaluates off of a rubric and equity afterwards, like I don't have anything that does that. So like how do we do this for the average instructor thinking through like an online course, or maybe they want to do something like this in their class, whatever it may be. I think let's focus on just like maybe the technical side right now. If we were to do this digitally without a programmed app for it, how would we tackle this?
I think there's
start
two
with the
ways actually, and I think that it really does depend on your goal. If you want better discussions on your subject matter, tanks, chemistry, philosophy, a very clear first statement, like a slap across the face moment, is you have to model what a good discussion looks like. Students today, adults today do not know good discourse. I've done a whole talk on that. I've done a lot of research on that. That is a clear statement.
We've had a whole episode on it.
We've several episodes have gotten to it, like it's something I care very deeply about. But if you wanted to do this for your class, I could say first, it might be a week 1 or a week 2 thing, or maybe like the first couple of weeks of course, but like you just do this every week, and you do have a very technical rubric saying, I want you to discuss anything. It could be icebreaker stuff. It could be whatever. It could be, what do you like, Republicans or Democrats? Could be like divisive, like try and drive them up. But it has to be built on these rubric points that are emphasizing verbal equity, like the option to balance your conversation with your peers. The idea that we're trying to build ideas. So if you did that divisive one, it wouldn't be to attack each other, but it's like you have to be building on each other. If someone says a claim from their democratic perspective that you disagree with, you have to find some way to build an idea with them, not just attack theirs. On the other side, if it's Republican, same thing, right? If somebody says something that's like, I don't like how you think about that, you can still maybe claim that, that's fine, but the question would always have to be back to them, how could we do it differently? Could we be better in this way? Like that's what is different, and that's modeling the effective discussion strategy itself. You could use just discussion boards to do that. I think the rubric is the most important part.
Yeah.
If you're trying to
setting the
recreate
standards,
this, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, just real quick, like setting the guidelines, the guide rails essentially for the discussion. Like this is standard discussion stuff we're talking about doing, but the point of what you're saying is focusing in on certain things, which are like the equity of the conversation, or the amount that people have been able to talk and be involved. The fact that, like, did they build certain ideas out of their discussion? Like, was their discussion fruitful? How did they work together to create ideas? Hence the name.
Exactly.
So, like,
but and the point there, though, and the point in my emphasis of modeling is they're trying to improve their discussion practices themselves.
Yeah.
So Dr. Borges' research and the Create platform had a plan stage. I've finally got a screenshot of the things that we've been talking about all these stages the whole time. I've actually got them written down in front of me now.
Planning.
Right? A plan stage, a chat stage, a reflection stage, and a monitoring stage, right? These 4 stages themselves are what you would have people...
We saw that screenshot earlier. Those were the stages? Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I actually grabbed that while we've been doing the podcast and put that there.
Okay, that's cool.
It's
on their website.
Welcome to the back end. Exactly. Yeah. So those 4 stages, like you could have your students practicing those stages and practicing that around their discussions, just to model and improve their habits as discussions, as in discourse.
Yeah.
But then, if you can establish that practice, so if you get your students into doing planning, chatting, reflecting, monitoring, if you know that they're doing that according to your rubric of verbal equity, all the idea building and all that stuff, great. Then you could just actually make it a discussion on the historical significance of Abraham Lincoln's assassination in the Reconstruction period after the Civil War. Boom. That can actually be the focus. But really, if you're trying to get students to do this, the first time you do it, it has to be a focus on the method itself, having discourse.
And it should continually be the method. I think part of this is like thinking through how we do discourse and how we come to learn. And yes, there's kind of this constructive methodology happening here, kind of this collaborative learning philosophy that I think several of us come from. And this podcast specifically, probably the two hosts tend to be in this area a little bit.
Hopefully.
But in theory, I hate it. I'm totally getting, no, I'm just joking. But I like this idea. So like, get real practically for a second, and then we need to thread the conversation somewhere else, so to speak.
Oh.
The
setup transition. I like it.
Boom. I love it. We still need to do a discussions series. We haven't done this yet on the podcast, and we need to get there. But anyway, I like this idea of kind of this flow of planning, chatting, and reflecting. And then what's the monitoring again that's in here? That's the part I'm still not quite getting.
So after you've done your own personal reflection, the monitoring is kind of this last interaction with the instructor. And so there's with the rubric, there are like eventually maybe some points involved and stuff, but you'll notice in the screenshot there's like a strength and weakness thing. So you're supposed to, in the planning stage, identify if you believe one of these things is going to be your strength and your weakness. So you think you're going to be good at equity or bad at quality of claims or this kind of stuff. And then in the monitoring stage, you get that feedback from your faculty member that's saying, hey, we've done the analysis on all your contributions, the analysis of your peers' contributions. You were right. You thought you'd be weak in this and strong in that. Your posts demonstrate that. Or no, you actually were strong in something completely different and you were weak in the thing you thought you'd be weak in. Like whatever it is, the monitoring stage is that feedback loop opportunity to get insight from the faculty member, from the system on how well you did or didn't do.
That's cool. Okay, let me give my hot take on how I might take this here for a second.
Let's do it.
So I was just thinking about this. Like, if you're looking for ways to implement this type of idea, I think it would be a cool way is like thinking through how in like a week could you tie like this idea of discussion and discourse into like building towards something at the end of the week, right? So like I might have them come to, maybe I want them at the end of this week. And the reason I'm thinking this, because I normally have profs who like at the end of the week, it's like they want to do like a reflection paper. They want to do like this thing. And this, like there's some type of thing by the end of the week that's supposed to be like a deliverable at that week for most, right? So like it'd be interesting to like, okay, maybe I want them to have this, paper reflecting on the effectiveness of tanks through World War II because our class is very specific. And so like I want to get them there, but maybe I want to get them there first by kind of scaffolding this out, right? Like in doing something like maybe I let them have some planning around this topic and then I bring them together for discourse where they actually have to do these practices and they've got this rubric ahead of time that specifies for them, how equity in the conversation was, how they built towards these ideas, and then have them actually start to reflect on the ideas that did come out of the discourse, how they did well in it, but also kind of like what were the main ideas that your group came to at the end, you know? And that might build me towards work later in that week then towards an actual deliverable to like take what you did with your peers over this week and kind of build out then this, summary paper or whatever it may be on the effectiveness of tanks in World War II. Like this idea of taking that then, building that, and showing that the knowledge that you come to at the end of the week is something that you've built together.
Right. And
so kind of giving that deliverable. Like that's my initial thought. That's I'm still kind of like, I think thinking through what that could all look like. I do think there's a lot of reliance in this method on live chat of a sort. I think this is difficult to do in asynchronous discussion because there's just lag time. Like if you do this in a discussion that's not live, you got to give your students more time to do it. Right. Because it's not going to happen in 30 minutes or 90 minutes. It's going to have to happen over, quite frankly, if I was going to do this, I might stretch a discussion over multiple weeks to make that happen.
At the same stroke, like functionally, I'm okay with that. Like I think you could do this in the same thing. The research element and Dr. Borges' side, it was like, there's something to the synchronous, and that was what but yeah, I do believe that you could do this same exact activity in Slack. A Slack channel per team, a Teams channel per team, absolutely. Whatever it is, and say over the week you have to do these things, but maybe there's a Monday required experience where they all plan, and then everything starts Tuesday going forwards. No problem.
What I like about that idea, we'll think about how many times we've helped develop courses where it's like a page. It's like, hey, remember, you're supposed to be researching for this huge activity that's due in 3 weeks. but then there's like nothing tied to that at all. It's just like a reminder that you're
literally
supposed to do it.
a stop sign. It's literally
Like,
just a stop sign in the course.
It's like
remember.
yeah. It's a billboard that's like,
Yup.
remember this awesome diner from 80 years ago.
By the
It's
time
5
you've read
miles
it, you're
down the
already
road.
5 miles
Yeah.
past it. Yeah.
Like, but what would it look like to scaffold out throughout the week's actual discourse between the students on what they've been researching,
right.
and working together to build ideas? Like, and I know some instructors who might back away from that, being like, I want my students to build their own ideas, but it's like, well, we do think that learning doesn't happen in a bubble. Like, ideas get built collaboratively, so like, let's let them do
Some
that.
of us do.
Yeah, some of us do. So anyway, I think there's a lot more to unpack here. But for now, we're gonna have to close that suitcase, and thread our zippers closed. That didn't work the way I wanted it to.
Let's reset that one. Why don't we pull on a different thread?
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
And yeah, I like that. See, that would have been much better than what I did. That's for sure. So the app we have today to share, you're all like, wait, that wasn't all an app? And you're like, no, it wasn't.
It functionally was, but it was
Functionally
not.
was, but more of an idea of how to discuss. It's a tool we've been holding on to for a while. We had a friend share this with us. A tool called ThreadIt, which is, you're like, oh, that's why they were saying
No, it makes sense.
thread stuff. It makes sense. I just thought they were crazy.
Well,
which
that
we
too.
are. So yeah, that too. Will, do you remember who told us about ThreadIt?
As soon as
I
you said
don't-
that a friend told us, I was like, oh, crap. Can we credit the right person?
Like, I'm trying to figure out who did it. I can credit the learning community. It was through Pedagogy. So
Probably.
Will and I are both a part of a Slack learning community. When I say both, I say Will's a part of a Slack community called Pedagogy, and
I text Josh when I want him to look at something.
I'm a parasite that just kind of jumps in whenever Will mentions me. But I found a lot of good stuff on here. One of them was ThreadIt. It came up in a conversation. I forget what it was. It was like a video conversation.
Yeah.
But so ThreadIt, if I could define it very easily, it's a video discussion based tool. And you guys are like, come on, guys, you've shared.
Do you have
many
anything else?
video discussion based tools? Well, I'm sorry, video is very popular in EdTech, but also this one's different to a certain extent. So I think it has like a different target group that it's going for. Like, we've talked about Flipgrid before, and Flipgrid is cool, and it has its purposes. Although I would say my biggest criticism from a higher ed standpoint is Flipgrid makes me feel like I should not be in higher ed and I should be
It's
5
very
and drawing with
K-12.
crayons. Yeah, it's very K-12. And there's a lot of other stuff on Flipgrid.
Meanwhile,
ThreadIt is real
Flipgrid
basic.
is very like elementary K-12-ish simple, while VoiceThread is like a very dynamic and
yes.
in-depth product. I think ThreadIt hits the
Threads
middle
the
pretty
needle
well.
between them, you can say.
There
you
you
know?
go.
No, I would say VoiceThread. If we talked about VoiceThread before in earlier episodes, you haven't listened to it,
Love
go check it out.
VoiceThread. Check it out.
Yep, go check them out. They're great. We've talked to Steve from VoiceThread. A lot of love
Steve.
for VoiceThread.
Thank you.
VoiceThread is, I think, a different tool in that it does a lot more. VoiceThread is something I'm going to adopt if I want to create this larger video platform situation at my
Or
institution.
embed it in an entire program,
or
like
in
a counseling program or
something
something
like that. Like,
that's
yeah,
going to
like
be the
it's-
tool that they all use.
It's very, and if I'm going to use it, if I want to do a lot of video collaboration back and forth, like VoiceThread has a lot of other stuff. It's like video feedback. It's feedback on your videos. It's a lot of other stuff. That though can be cumbersome if you literally just want something to like video discuss things with each other.
Yep.
Right. So like, the reason ThreadIt is really cool is ThreadIt is real simple. So you log in, you can get in with Google create an account, whatever you want. They have a free base. Is it all free? I couldn't
I
find
don't
pricing.
think there's a
when we were looking
pricing.
at
I
it.
think it's all free.
Okay, so it's all free. It's kind of one of those indie apps that we're finding with ThreadIt. It's a cool tool. But basically, you just create a thread. That's all you do. Give it a title, a prompt maybe. But then you basically just record a video. That's all you do. It's a web-based tool with Chrome extensions. You can share your thread with people. And then you basically just create this video. Somebody drops into the thread. They click a little reply button. And that reply button triggers that you can record a video. And you record a video, you can share your screen, you can just record audio, whatever you want in reply to that video. And then you can keep doing that.
I think the most complicated part, the biggest bells and whistles about it, are you can put on a filter while you're recording, you can screen share, and you can get a transcript at when it's done. So like, It's really as simple as making a threaded visual conversation. Their website front page makes some extra emphasis that like this could be great for like an asynchronous all hands meeting, like just, you know, the CEO or leaders like putting content out there and letting people reply. It could be a good just visual way to work with somebody. Like, hey, you could be working on a project, send them a quick thread like, hey, what do you think about page 2? And then just go right back to keep working. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like texting. They're trying to make ThreadIt visual texting. It's meant to be quick, short, back and forth. But the other thing that I didn't think about before this, and I really like this when I was reviewing some of their information here, is like they kind of say like you could use this for tutoring or something, right? You could do this for papers and writing on college papers. You could have helping somebody like Josh and I do a lot of troubleshooting for people with systems and stuff because you can do the screen sharing and things like that. It'd be really easy to have threaded conversations instead of emails.
Well, that's what I think you and I were talking before we were looking at it. From an education standpoint as an instructor, I could see this being something like, okay, a lot of students are having this problem, or this one student's having this problem. I quick just run up a ThreadIt, throw in a video of me explaining something or asking a question or whatever it may be, and sending it to that student or students and telling them, hey, go ahead and reply. Answer my question. Does this make sense? Does it not? If you have other students, you have questions, come in here. It's literally just like video chat. That's essentially what it is. But it's asynchronous video chat. It's not like a synchronous Zoom video chat.
Right.
So it's very simple. You could in theory use it to do like, I don't know, like a create, maybe you're creating a discussion with some planning and some chatting going on. This could be a good tool in the midst of there to use for something like this. Now you're limited on analytics and stuff like that. It's a very simple tool, but it's I like that it's simple
viewers.
And they know who they are.
It is nice if you start a thread and you've got people invited in it. It's got a little thing up at the top. You can see who viewed it. So, it's not something, again, that you're trying to get deep dive and research on, but you could get good conversations going here. I did find other FAQs. It is free, intended to be free. There's no charge, nothing, no worries there. They've got some terms of service stuff. This is something that came out of Google. Google has apparently an internal incubator system called Area 120. And so this came out of Area 120. It's just a project, but it's getting more development and more insights over time. So while it's free, while it's interesting, give it a shot.
Check it out.
I think it's nice to have a free, easy tool. And, sure, Flipgrid is free too, but sometimes those tools do go further than they need to. This is meant to do quick video voicemail back and forth.
Yeah.
Easy.
If you just want video chat back and forth, you can send to your students or people you're helping. There's no bells and whistles on this one, and it's simple and easy. And I think that's what the big sell for me with ThreadIt would be. So check it out. Just threadit.app, and you can go ahead and start logging in right away and just creating some videos. So that's pretty cool. With that said, our time has come to an end, folks.
Dun, dun, dun.
For now. Until next week, because we're still making more episodes. No. So, just a reminder. Next week, episode 58, we're going to be talking about some cool stuff. We're going to be talking about micro learning again. So we've talked a little bit about kind of small learning. Not really what I wanted to call it, but I can't think of what I want to call it right now because we're at the end of an episode.
Yeah, we had a phrase for it.
What did we called it something? I don't know. Go into season 1 and check it out. It's there.
Yep. Short form instruction.
Short form instruction. Look at us. Okay. So we talk about short form instruction, but we want to talk specifically about this idea of micro learning. It's come up in a couple of our episodes. Will and I feel like there's something to talk about specifically here. And we're going to share an awesome app that ties into that called EdApp. I know, very generic, but it's cool. So we'll talk about that next episode. As always, make sure you hit us up on Twitter at High Tech Podcast, or email us at inbox at hightech. Inbox at hightechpod.us. I don't know what I did. Send us that bearded dragon with a wizard hat, or check out our website at hightechpod.us as well. We'd love to connect with you guys and for you to check out the resources we've got there. Thank you again for another week joining us as we continue to learn how to harness that technology, create some cool discussions or discourse, whether we're in the live physical classroom or we're in the interwebs, the digital classroom. See ya.
See ya.